Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Animal Lovers Cafe. I'm so happy you're able to join us. I'm here with our wonderful guest, veterinarian extraordinaire, Dr. Christina Chambreau. And I'm going to just welcome everybody that's here. And I have a question for you before we get going. You're here because you're an animal lover. So what do you feed your animal companions? Do you feed them dry, canned, homemade, raw? It doesn't matter. If you would like to, please share in the comments whatever it is that you might be feeding your animal companions. It's kind of a fun thing to talk about because that's what this show, this live is all about. So one more question for you. Have you wanted to feed healthier food to your dog or your cat, but you're not sure what's best? No worries. You're in the right place because we're going to be talking about fresh food for your dogs and cats with Dr. Christina Chambreau. But before I bring her on, if you're new, I want to welcome you to the cafe. And if you are new, please write new in the comments so everybody that's a member of the cafe can welcome you because we're all animal lovers, animal friends, and we want to welcome you and get to know you. So please write new in the comments. And if you're new and you don't know me, my name is Janet Dobbs of Animal Paradise Communication and Healing, where my greatest joy is to help you learn your unique way of communicating telepathically with animals. Say that 5 times. Telepathically. So before I bring her on, I'd like to say a little bit about Dr. Chambreau. Dr. Chambreau, Dr. Christina, as some people call her, is a homeopathic veterinarian, and she teaches people how to be their pet's health advocate and has inspired many veterinarians to start using holistic approaches in their practices. And her mission is to empower people to heal themselves and their animals in ways that heal our planet. I just love that so much. And welcome, Dr. Chambreau. I am so happy that you're able to be here with us again.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. And it's so wonderful that you have a community like this that gathers on a regular basis, and they know they can always come here to learn more and share with each other as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, thank you for being part of that because you are part of this community. So appreciate that. Yeah. And we have some friends here. So I'd just like to just really quickly before we get started, and that's you. Just say hi to a few people. So, hi, Marcus. He says hi to me, but I know he says, and this is really good. Marcus says, I should eat healthier food for myself too. So, Marcus and everybody, Dr. Chambreau, you were one of my teachers way back in the 90s and opened my eyes to that. And so I come to everything through the animals. It's like, I want the best for my animals. And they were like, maybe I could do that for me too, can I? And I know like people like you, friends in the class, they were all like, they'd laugh at me and go like, oh, we came to this because of us and we wanted to do things for our animal companions, but I do things a little backwards. And just one more person wants to say hello. Elizabeth Bava, she's just wonderful. So she wants to say hello to you too. So I just want to welcome
Hi.
everybody. And thank you, Dr. Christina. So we're talking about feeding our animals fresh food. So,
Well, we're going to start with a little overview, and then we're going to get right into your questions because several of you have had questions already for Janet, and others of you online will. So there's so much to talk about with food that I might as well just answer your questions rather than giving you a prepared, what I usually say. So there are a few basic things. What is the best ingredients for yourself to eat? Is it in a can? If your nutritionist said to drink Ensure twice a day and not ever eat anything else, it's a whole, complete, balanced diet if you have a feeding tube in. No, the most important thing is fresh, lots of variety, right? So that's step one. Yes, I want to feed fresh food to my pets. Absolutely. Because what's in kibble and what's the impact on the planet of prepared food? So you have a place where in the middle of Kansas, and the ingredients come from all over the place there. And then they put it together and they use a lot of energy and they make this food and then they package it in plastic bags or in cans and then they ship it out and to distribution centers that then ships out to the stores where you buy your food. You don't know how old it is. You have no idea what's gone into that food. Whereas if you're using your own ingredients, you know exactly what's going into it. And many of the prepared fresh food diets, cooked and raw, are still such small companies that you can get to know the owner and you can really be not 100% sure as doing it yourself, but you can get an idea of what is going into that food. So that's number one, fresh, variety. Number two is, what are dogs and cats designed to eat? They have ripping and tearing teeth, okay, to kill and rip it into small enough pieces. And when they do that, they're getting a chiropractic adjustment. Cool, every time they eat. And then they have little incisors that often fall out as they get just a little bit older. And that's because those incisors are designed to take a big bone that has a little bit of cartilage and gristle and maybe some muscle meat on it and gnaw. And that makes those teeth healthy. And then they have one big set of big molars in the back, and those are to crunch the bones. So in the wild, do dogs and cats pull out a match and build a fire and cook their meat first? Nope. Do they pull out a knife and debone that little bird so they don't ever eat a bone? Nope. So naturally, they're designed to eat big hunks of raw meaty bones, pureed vegetables that are in the stomach and digestive tract of the prey. Having said that, does every person in the world eat the same diet? What about a vegetarian or a vegan compared to Weston Price eating mostly meat and raw milk and organic food? What about in the middle? What about people who do eat at McDonald's some of the time or fast food places, and then other times they're eating really good organic food? There's no one right answer. Every animal thrives on different things. However, they don't thrive as well when they're eating processed food. So I had someone call me yesterday at Holistic Actions Academy. You get a 15-minute phone call with either Dr. Jeff or myself. And so she was calling for her 15-minute appointment. And she said, ever since I talked to you months ago, I am so thrilled because I first changed the diet. And my dog was vomiting every 30 times a day. Oh no, it was seizuring. My dog was seizuring 30 times a day. And as soon as we changed the food, it decreased to 5. Now that doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does happen. And now she's working to get it down so it's not happening at all. So food can make a huge difference. So those are the basics. Feed fresh, lots of variety, no one right answer. It's okay to mix processed food and fresh food, one meal of one meal of another, or mix them together. There are guidelines, but we won't get into those yet. And there are books you can read about it that are wonderful. So should we go to questions? Starting with Janet.
Yeah. So I have a question, and then, yes, there are some questions too. I have a question about that because I guess that's like a really wonderful change. And I was, throughout the years, have heard the only thing you can feed is raw. And I wondered about that because I did, back in the 90s, I made my own. So it was like I did raw, and it was like the same food every meal. And it didn't feel like, don't we need a balance? And so that's one question. And also,
okay, let's go with that one.
Okay.
So that's very important. And that's why I said variety. We are not, when we first started back in the 80s and 70s of realizing that processed food wasn't that healthy, we thought the people making the food knew what animals should eat. That was a mistake.
Right.
So we started out mimicking what they did. So, but we wanted it raw. So we did raw meat, some vegetables, some grains, because that's what was in the can. Then we went, wait a minute, what do they eat in the wild? What are their digestive systems like? And so then some people pushed for raw. Now, those people who are doing Chinese medicine, so this is by Ihor Basco, Fresh Food and Ancient Wisdom. And he's talking about it from a Chinese food therapy perspective. And often, because of low qi, they believe it's better to cook the food. They also often recommend feeding some grains. So again, there's no one right answer. That's the most important answer to your question, Janet.
I really love that. Thank you so much. And so there's a comment from Marcus. He says vegetables are in the prey. Fascinating. So for some people that are new that have never thought about that, yeah, in the stomach, right?
And they've been well chewed because those are herbivores. That dogs and cats have a very short, small intestine. Therefore, if you feed chunks of vegetables, which is fine for treats and fun and playfulness, they may pass out undigested because, again, they don't chew. They just rip, tear, crunch, swallow. And therefore, to get the nutrition coming out in the small intestines, it's much better to puree the vegetables or use a juicer, things like that.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good to know. No, I used to do that with mine puree, but I still wondered, like, in the wild, are they getting pureed carrots? I don't think so.
Yes, they are in the
Oh, really?
intestinal tract. That's what they're getting in the intestinal tract of their prey.
Interesting.
Is they're getting pureed, well chewed, let's put it that way, vegetables and grains, but usually not grains like we think of grains like wheat and corn, but more wild rice, seeds, nuts, that sort of thing. However, over the decades, over the centuries, dogs who've lived with us for a long time have eaten everything we eat, including rice and bread and all that. And they can thrive on it. So again, no one right answer. The key is fresh and variety.
And that's, that makes sense. That just really makes sense, because look at what, some of the stuff we humans eat, and some of us are healthy and some of us not so much, but, we eat all kinds of things, and so do our animal companions. So that really makes sense. So here's a question from somebody who didn't want to be, it doesn't matter. They didn't give their name, but so they wanted to know about elderly dogs. And what is there anything special, particular to feed them? And just to add to that, as a lot of veterinarians say this is the elderly dog food, and it's in a bag and it's whatever. What is your response to that, to their question, as far as anything
so first
special?
Off, one of the things that you need to realize is the veterinarian you're working with never had any nutrition classes. We had like this really short thing. They don't know anything about nutrition for animals. They just know what the companies have taught them and told them to promote and to sell. So if you can't find an integrative veterinarian with whom to work, who's near you, try to find a veterinarian who won't push processed food on you and who will respect your choices. So food in a can or a bag, whether it's prescription or not, is definitely, it has all those problems I talked about. You don't know what's in it. Ingredients can be anything. And we know that from the poisonings that have happened over the last few decades from food. What an elderly cat or dog needs to eat is basically exactly the same thing that a puppy or kitten needs to eat, an adult dog or cat needs to eat, and it depends on their health concerns and their health conditions and who you're working with. If you're following Chinese medicine philosophy, then you may want to do some light cooking of foods. You may want to do some different vegetables or grains. And the thing is to try, see what makes them glow, what makes them feel better and have more energy. And a great example with cats is a sanctuary called Brighthaven. Gail Pope, when it's brighthaven.org, Gail Pope at one time had adopted over 90, that's 90 cats who were 16 or older when she adopted them, and she switched them to a fresh food diet. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them took to it. And she worked with homeopathic veterinarians, and I treated one who lived to be 34, and several made it to 28 to 30 range. And of course, some died shortly after she got them. It just depended. So if your elderly dog has teeth problems, then you may want to look at maybe not feeding bones, but adding calcium to the diet instead. If it's an elderly dog with kidney problems, it's fine to feed meat. Many conventional veterinarians say you need to do low protein, and they give you this KD or CD that is low protein. That's not true. It's because it's processed, cooked, yucky food that you have to limit the proteins. So with your elderly dog, it just depends on any conditions that are going on. And I want to remind you, holistic veterinarians, traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, osteopathy, chiropractor, they can treat any illness that your elderly dog has. Drugs may not be needed. Right. And that's true for all cats and dogs. Don't think it's only for prevention. It's for any condition.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for saying that, because I've had my own personal experience, whether it was with my own animals, so I saw firsthand, or with clients of my own. I remember one who rescued dachshunds. So you know they have back issues, and she would rescue them. So they would come in, eating who knows what, and their coats were really in bad condition, and their bodies and everything was not so good. And she put them on raw. She would always switch them right away to raw, and she would tell me. She showed me pictures too. Their coats were shiny. Their breath smelt better. They were, their energy was back. So many things happened just from that simple thing of switching, the diet. But I have a question from somebody, if you don't mind.
Hang on one second.
Okay, sure.
So Steve Brown's book, which is Unlocking the Canine Ancestral Diet, he has many, many examples in this book of people who started feeding just one meal a week of fresh food, and it turned their lives around. Now, I'd recommend feeding more because it'll help the planet, but at least even a little bit helps.
Wow, that's amazing. I have never heard anything like that before, so I really love that. Another question that came in is, I don't know if I can name a name, but there is a veterinarian who's pretty well known who has a it's called freeze-dried raw. So I was curious about, so now the moisture's been taken out of it, and the instructions say, because I read about it, the instructions say add water to it. So I know from my kitties, when they're healthy, they don't drink water.
Right.
So would it make sense to feed them, even though it's raw, it's supposed to be the best ingredients, the highest quality, but all the moisture has been taken out? I just was wondering what your thoughts were about that.
You do need to add water to it.
But then is that okay? I mean, it's been obviously processed.
Well, again, everything's a scale. Mm-hmm. Everything is there. Again, there's no one right answer.
Right.
So there are some people so busy, there's no way that they can ever prepare food for their animals, and maybe they're a vegan, and it grosses them out something terribly to buy a frozen raw food diet and thaw it. Mm-hmm. And so for them, the freeze-dried raw may be the best. It is raw, and it depends, the benefit of it depends on how it was made. Was it dehydrated at a low temperature or a high temperature? So that has to be checked out. And so different brands have different, whether it's a vet or not, doesn't matter. There are a lot of veterinary diets out there that are not very good. So it's a matter of doing research.
So that's a really good point. Like, of course, being able to do the research, again, if you have the time to do that, or if you know somebody that you trust, like your holistic veterinarian that has done the research, then you can find out the answer, hopefully, in that way. We have a lot of questions.
So keep going.
This one, I don't know if it's a question. It's from Elizabeth Bava. My dogs like cooked and raw yams, green beans, broccoli, butternut squash, and carrots. The cooked is soft but raw. It should.
So as I said, the for nutrition, it needs to be pureed. For fun and just liking it, it's fine to feed chunks, but you'll often find them coming out in the stool, just like pieces of corn for people.
Sure.
And dogs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fine, and good for you for feeding all those different things. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I guess her concern was, should I not give them the chunks of carrots and broccoli?
It's, as I said, it is for nutrition, you want to have it pureed. For fun and enjoyment, it is fine to feed chunks.
Okay, that makes sense. So thank you for that. And then this is from Maria Kimball, and she says this will come in two parts. Due to kidney disease, I feed my labs homemade diet created for them by Tufts University. And let me get that back up there again. It included balanced ITK and Neurotic Naturals fish oil. And I guess I'll get the second part. Is it possible to feed a complete homemade diet without the addition of such supplements?
It is, and again, every animal is different. The key supplement that you must give is either feed bones or feed a calcium supplement. Mm-hmm. Because in the wild, they're eating meat, muscle meat, organ meat, heart, liver, kidney, etc., and they're eating the bones. And therefore, there's a balance between the phosphorus and the calcium. So if you're not feeding bones, then you must feed calcium. Every veterinarian has a different opinion, just like for people. How many supplements should you as a person take? Our soils are depleted, even organic. We aren't getting the same nutrients we used to. I read somewhere that to get the amount of nutrients from a cup of that in 1900, you could eat a cup of spinach, and now you need a bathtub of spinach in order to get the same nutrients. So we may need some supplements, and particularly, but if you have a kidney disease, homeopathy and Chinese medicine can keep them going even without fluids forever. So what I would do is commit to doing research about the ingredients, the fresh ingredients you need to be doing that where you won't need any supplements, then try it without the supplements and pay attention. Is the coat still good? Is the energy level still good? Are the blood levels staying good? Then you don't need supplements. If the coat starts to get a little scraggly looking, then you might need the Nordic Naturals, some omegas, whether it's Nordic or another one. So it's a matter of testing, experimenting.
Oh, and yeah, thank you for that. And I will get some of that information from you and put that in the description so people can,
Sure.
Or just watch this again, watch the replay, and write really good notes. But thank you for giving some specifics. That's really, really helpful. Of course, all of us really want to know, like, what do we give? What do you recommend? So thank you.
Again, there is no one right answer. And joining a group like yours, where you can talk back and forth about what's working and what's not working, or you can post the link for you to Holistic Actions Academy, and people there are always talking back and forth. Plus, we have about 5 veterinarians that are giving their opinion on the forum as well.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, Holistic Actions is a group of people that, you could explain it a little bit better for me, but I think it's just a really great place to get information. And just so everybody knows, there's a free, and then there's a paid that gives you even more wonderful, information about, and as you said, a great community. I think it's really important for us to build community of animal lovers.
It is. Now let's get back to questions. We want to answer everybody's.
Okay, so there's one more. Let me get let's see. So this is
yes. So I think there is no one right answer. So she's grinding chicken And you might want to leave
Yeah.
it up so people can see
Yeah.
it. And hearts are really, really good, especially for cats, because they're full of
Sorry.
taurine. And some people feel that it's important, and I'm leaning this way now, that in addition to calcium being essential, that taurine for cats and maybe even for dogs is essential, because as foods are cooked at all or sometimes processed and there's no blood anymore, that we're missing some of the nutrients, and taurine is pretty critical for cats. So the answer is yes, I would definitely do different meats, number one. Number two, I would experiment and see how big a chunk of, rather than grinding, how big a chunk would your cats eat? Because grinding, they don't eat ground food in the wild. So if you can get them to eat at least even slightly bigger pieces where they can go and work on it. One time I saw a picture in the cat's feet, or just watching a cat, their feet are out there working in order while they're gnawing on it. So good for you for feeding that. And again, there's no one right answer. You could keep doing that and it might be fine. But one of the reasons for feeding more variety is cats particularly can be very finicky. A lot of dogs can be too. And if you're only feeding one thing and then all of a sudden they decide not to eat that, then you're dealing with, oh my goodness, he's not going to eat anything. Or if you're feeding a commercial, whether it's a raw food or a cooked food, and that company goes out of business, then you're stuck again. So the more variety you can feed, the better. And now it may be that your main meal is still the basic chicken. And then for treats or for a second meal, you feed a wide variety of different, vegetables, even a piece of bagel and cream cheese or toast with butter on it, and just see what they like. So you've always got something to fall back on.
Yeah, that's a really, really important. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's good for all of us to know that. I'm really lucky that our two kitties that we have now get a big variety of flavors, and from raw to, I do give them some healthy canned, and just to give them a variety, because I've had the finicky ones, and then especially if they get ill and they don't want to eat anything, and you're desperate to get something in them, it's a challenge. So that's really makes me feel good. Thank you.
One thing nobody's asked, and I know we're short on time here, is that it's hard to get cats off dry food. So I've got one quick tip that you don't hear very often, and that is keep the dry food in the freezer so they can't smell it. If it's in the pantry, they can smell it. And then when they're not around, or while they're eating their other food they're eating, take the dry food and powder it. Use a coffee grinder or an herb grinder and make a powder, keep it in a jar. And then as you're trying to switch them to canned or to raw, use it like salt and just sort of put a little top dressing of it on. Now, as you've explored other foods like tuna fish or anchovies or roasted chicken from the deli, that kind of thing, and you found things they love like butter, then you can use those to top dress to get them to eat better food as well.
Oh, thank you. That is I never thought about that. I mean, that's really great. And yeah, there's so many people that, so transitioning from a food that's not as healthy to a healthier food can be a big problem.
You can do it.
And a lot of people give up. So that's a great tip.
Right. Never give up. Even if, as Dr. Jean Hovey of littlebigcat.com says, if you do one molecule of food more that's fresh a day, it's worth taking the time. If it takes 2 years to get them willing to eat fresh food at least part of the time, it's worth it. And then somebody else said, for cats particularly, dogs are a little better. So you have your canned food, you've gotten the canned food, and beside the canned food, put 2 morsels of cooked or raw meat. And they may ignore it. This one person who taught us this at Holistic Actions, I'd never heard of doing this. And she said it took her, I think, 6 months of putting down the teeny tiny bit of fresh, it was raw or cooked, I don't know, I don't remember, next to the canned food. And all of a sudden, one day, her cat looked at the canned food and started eating the raw and never ever looked back again.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Just another tip.
Thank you so much. I just love all of the tips that you have given us and for spending some time with us. And if people want to get a hold of you, um, this is your website.
Yep.
So, let people know. And I'm just going to share with everybody all of your information, your contact information is in the
Wonderful.
description. So, yeah, I want to just thank you so much for being here with us in the Animal Lovers Cafe. I hope you come back and join us again because this has just been so fascinating, and I always learn something amazing from you. So
Thank you.
I'm gonna try a few things. Yes.
I actually just realized I don't think I sent this to you. So for everybody listening, on March 3rd through 6th, I think it is, or maybe 8th, is going to be the Dog Health Summit, but it's not just for dogs. We'll be talking about cat as well. And so I will send Janet a link to that. And it's for free. Although if you want to keep listening to it, you can purchase the set, just the way everybody doing it these days. Yeah, that's how we're all doing it these days. But these are colleagues that I have known for the last, I've been doing it 40 years. And these are ones I've known over that time, many of them just the last 10 or 20 years. So these are experts in the field, not all veterinarians, who will help you learn much, much more about holistic approaches for healing your animals. And I'll send that to you as soon as I get off.
Thank you so much. And I will post it for everybody so you can have it, because it's just always good to know about what's going on out there. And please feel free to connect with Dr. Chambreau or Dr. Christina, because she's just amazing. I have known you since the 90s and a great teacher for me. And just always want to thank you. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And I hope you come back to the cafe soon.
I will.
Thanks,
thank
everybody.
you to everybody who came. Really, thank you. Your animals thank you. The planet thanks you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, everybody. I will see you next week. I will see you soon, Dr. Chambreau. I hope you come back soon. So bye, everybody. Thanks for being with us, and have fun with your animals.